I mean, so the way I really just want to do this is just honestly to chat. So, yeah, man, how's it going?
Good. I'm super tired. Like I said, I don't know. I was up till 2:30 last night, just working on a few little issues that got all taken care of, and then up early, and now looking forward to the weekend, which will just be like 8 hours of work as opposed to the normal 12 to 14.
Dang, so you guys are really killing it.
I don't know. It's still super early, honestly, for us. Like people ask the question, and I think you know what it's been like. I think I'll know in a year is kind of the answer in my mind. The team is like definitely delivering, like hitting everything kind of what we want, and so now it's just a matter of trying to get a sense for when do we talk about what we're doing publicly versus when is the product ready enough. Like there's a non-trivial cost for like going out and talking about this thing in kind of a more public way, right? Like competitors that know that you're in the space. Is it really truly differentiating in some ways, so on and so forth. So yeah, I don't know. Like advice on that would be interesting. I'm taking a bunch of different data points. Like no one has like here's the exact way you think about this, but different perspectives are helpful. I don't know if you've got one that you think is interesting.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, so like, with Doubly, we just kind of talked about it to anybody who was relatively interested. But, at the end of the day, it was really easily encapsulated into a single sentence. It's essentially a sticker app on which you can improve your photos or create better memes or, something like that. There was never really too much of a, let's talk about like sort of step after this and the step after that, because a lot of it was really up in the air. It's sort of like, what really is the next step? And, so much of it was kind of like, we're trying to figure that out ourselves. There's very little we can talk about with like, where are we going to go once everyone's using this product? So we talked a lot about retention and we talked a lot about consumery type stuff. And it was much less about product and, hey, what are your needs? Tell me your needs, because I want to be able to help you.
Yeah.
I feel like, and I'm obviously putting words in your mouth, that feels more like the B2B space to me, right?
Yeah. I mean, like, I think from a needs perspective, I feel like we're doing okay. Like when we can talk to people and like we've, I think, innovated in a number of like really, really good ways. It's just a matter of, there's a bunch of like competing priorities, I guess, is trying to figure out when you go and talk about it, when is the product ready, how do you get the right people on board, things like that. So I don't know. It's I think like one of the things that's kind of unique to developer platforms or developer tools in general is developers are fairly finicky, and so like if they see something they don't like, they don't use it again.
Yeah.
Hold on a sec. Oh. Yeah, sorry about that. So yeah, that can be a little bit. So if you provide a substandard experience and they try it and they don't like it, then they don't come back, right? Like actually, the guy who just walked in right now, he's absolutely sworn to fish as his shell, right? And he will not move away from that at any cost. And he judges everyone else who uses anything else other than fish. So like developers are opinionated, and so you have to make sure that you have a product that's like robust enough to like appease them. So yeah, I don't know. We'll see how it goes. Yeah,
I don't know. I guess it's pretty interesting. Like from kind of like the banter perspective, which is so much more like things are really up in the air. Like what exactly is it? And it's really like I can't show you, I can tell you. You know what I mean? And so the way I find it interesting, at least in my mind, is to get my head out of like deep down into the code and be able to talk about it 10 times a day and get sort of feedback about it and kind of like develop the product that way. Because, at the end of the day, it's sort of like so much of it is a thought process. Now, what I am finding more and more is that actually having something to show people is arguably infinitely better than just telling the story. Not only because it gets the idea across quicker, but it also has this ability to say like, when you have something built, you can iterate on that thing and you can fix the things, or you can add the things, or you can do this, or you can do that. And, it kind of takes away the whole idea that I was having before, which is it makes more sense to develop the product and raise money and do this and do that. It's actually more, I think, about building the product first and foremost. So we've essentially moved more in that direction and are really driving forward and getting something out the door quickly at this point.
That's awesome. Yeah, I mean, like, I remember this is an expression that I've always kind of used in my career, which is code talks and bullshit walks. And so it's like, But it comes at a cost, right? Like to your point, like it's really easy to talk about something, but it is a very lossy, like a lossy process, right? Like if I say like, oh, I'm wearing a blue shirt, like that can mean a bunch of different things to you, right? So whereas if like you see it on a video, there's no question. I mean, there's some question, right? Because people perceive color slightly differently, but you know what I mean. Within the realm of normal physics, like you know what shade of blue that I'm talking about. You can tell if it's collared or not collared or what have you. So having people to actually play with it and use it is really good. The thing is, like you can imagine, like in our scenario anyway, which is like, oh, it's a blue shirt. Oh, I can't believe it's only like 98% cotton and 2% lycra or something. You know what I mean? They're like, that's ridiculous. I'm never wearing a shirt again. That's just like a piece of shit, right? So
that's a common reaction, I think.
Like crap.
It's
like,
funny you said. Well, it's funny you said blue shirt. I've been banned for life from only one casino, but I've been banned for life from there twice. The first time, yeah, I know. The first time I was in this casino, and we were playing cards there or whatever, and I had lost a really bad hand to this guy, and I was.
Were you playing poker?
Let's be honest. Yeah, I was playing poker. It's not like a casino. It's a card house that's in kind of near the airport in San Francisco.
Oh, what's it called?
Artichoke Joe's.
Oh yeah, I've heard of it. I've never been.
I mean, it's filled up with degenerate gamblers, and sometimes you go there for fun. And we were there, and I lost a bad hand. And what I used to do to kind of rile people up is I would always refer to a piece of clothing they were wearing and call them by that name. So the guy who beat me, I kept calling him Blue Shirt. I said, "Nice hand, Blue Shirt. Nice hand, Blue Shirt." And all of a sudden, he gets really upset. He says, "Why are you calling me Blue Shirt?" And he gets really, really like he's gonna fight me, sort of thing. And so this turned into a whole mess, and the casino guards had to come, and they threw both of us out and banned me for life. And then like 2 years later, I went back and got banned for life again for a whole other incident.
Well, no, what's the other incident now? I'm curious.
I mean, this one's really embarrassing. I guess, all right. Well, so I'd always made this joke that I said, like it would be the greatest thing in the entire world to never have to use the bathroom, just wear a diaper everywhere you went. And I was always joking about it. Anyway, one day, some guys I work with paid me, I think it was $400 to put my money where my mouth was at this particular casino. And hilarity ensued, and I was very quickly not asked to never come back again.
Are you serious?
But I made $400. That's the way I look at it.
Wait, so how long did it take from before, like, when you sat down to when you used the diaper to when you got kicked out? Was it like a marathon session that you were going through, or what?
No, I had been planning for this, and so I'd kind of been stocking up the reserves for about a day. And so, 15 minutes into it, let me tell you, it is nerve-wracking to try and relieve yourself with like 9 people sitting at the same table as you. But I did it, and then the deal was that I either had to be kicked off the table due to smell or sit there for 45 minutes. Like one of the two had to elapse in order for me to make money. So apparently degenerate gamblers can't smell things very well. So I was at the table for 45 minutes. I mean, we're talking like one of the most uncomfortable periods of my entire life. But, again, like $400. Why did
you get kicked out then?
Because I was also very drunk, and after this, with the, I would say the olfactory sensation wasn't great. I may have puked a lot in the bathroom and asked me to come back.
That's fine, gotcha. So you weren't asked to leave because you were wearing an adult diaper that you shit yourself in. You were asked to leave because you were throwing up. So it was. Yeah. It was liquid from a different hole that got you in trouble. Got it.
Yeah, I know, right? I mean, it's one or the other. They always get me in trouble, right?
How much poker did you play, actually? I'm kind of curious.
So I used to play a fair amount of poker, and not like a lot, but, so there were 2 sort of San Jose card houses that were relatively close to Stanford, and we would go sort of as a group, like me and 2 of my friends, maybe once a month and play, 6-7 hours, something like that, just kind of like screwing around. Nothing big, like usually 1-2, no limit. Or I think actually back then it was spread limit, so you could only bet up to $100 per bet or whatever.
Oh, yeah.
But this was also when online poker was really big. And so I played a fair amount of online poker, like absolute poker, full tilt poker, and I think there's like party poker or something like that. Mm-hmm. And so I'd play like a fair amount of tournaments and stuff like that. In fact, one summer I think I ended up making a few $1,000s one summer, which, back then, like that was enough to live off of. And I was stoked for like a year off of that money.
I used to play those tournaments quite a bit, actually. It's kind of funny online. I used to, like, when we worked when I worked in Seattle, like in Redmond, I mean, it's like a bunch of guys like in their early 20s, alpha personalities, in Redmond, Washington, right? And so like you'd be bored out of your tree. So we would fly down to Vegas. Like we'd have dinner on Friday night. We'd be like, what do you guys want to do this weekend? We'd be like, oh, there's nothing to do. We'd call up Alaska Airlines. We used to like literally have them a speed dial, and we would fly down to Vegas on Friday night, play cards all Friday night. Oh yeah, all Friday night, and then check into a room at the Venetian, usually Venetian actually, and then sleep for a few hours during the day, play a little bit more cards, grab another couple hours, and then do like another all-nighter session, and then leave Sunday. And like I've probably been to Vegas like well over 45 times, like 45, 50 times. I used to play a lot, and there's a big poker crew at Microsoft. Like one of the guys came in like 13th in the World Series of Poker. We used to have like this Monday night game. It was tournament. You'd buy in $20, and then it was like, I don't know, $10 rebuys for the first whatever. And then and so one of the guys was like really, really good, but he was like, I swear he was on speed all the time. And so it's funny because like even to this day he's a professional player, and like track him online, and he's made like millions of dollars. Like he left Microsoft and he went and played there. There was a girl who was actually part of the MIT like blackjack team who would come. So we actually went to a casino out in the sticks in Washington or whatever, and we walked in, and like probably like 10 minutes later, but like, you guys have to go.
That's amazing.
Yeah, it was crazy. It was like, oh, we're playing poker, and they're like, no, we don't want your business.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, and it's because I guess they had to, I don't know, like they recognized her somehow, and so they're like, off you go. Thank you so much.
Well, you make a name for yourself if you are putting a casino over a barrel. Like, let's be honest, that just doesn't happen very often, and they have to share everything about all these casinos. They have to be in cahoots with each other because it only helps them.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah, but the technology is pretty remarkable. Like you sit down, 10 minutes later, like the casinos are pretty big, and they're like, yeah, we want you to get out. Like so, like presumably they're doing some kind of facial recognition when you walk in the place, right? Mm-hmm. And then they can track it all out. That's pretty cool. Yeah, it was a ton of fun playing. I remember this one guy. This is the guy who did really well in the World Series of Poker. I remember we'd watch him play online, and he played against a guy named Prahlad Friedman. And so like Prasad, and one of these like crazy poker player dudes. And so he got, they would push like tens of thousands of dollars back and forth, right? And he's like, oh, when I beat you in this hand, I'm going to buy this Lexus, like SC430, like the shitty like two-door sport coupe thing, like the convertible thing. And so he's like, you're not going to win. There's like a ton of shit talking that ensued. And sure enough, he won the hand, and he bought the Lexus, and he got a license plate holder that says, thanks, Prahlad, and took a picture and sent it to him.
That's hilarious, man.
He actually took, I was just like, wow, that's balls. No.
So professional gamblers are an interesting group. I don't have massive insight into them, but a good friend of mine used to be roommates or would like share a flat with Antonio Esfandiari, like the magician, I guess. You know?
Yeah.
And so they would gamble literally all the time. I mean, it's not like you would just kind of gamble here or there. They would be gambling about everything. So this guy, Lee, awesome guy, but he would have 7 or 8 bets for like good amounts of money going at all times. And they would be things ranging from you have to do 100 push-ups a day every day for a month, and then they made money off of the delta of how many push-ups each person did every day or whatever. Yeah. All of it's on the system, which I actually really respect that. But the craziest bet they did, this is between Lee and then Antonio and Antonio's friend Phil. And Lee put up $25,000 against their 12-5 and 12-5 that he couldn't eat a quail every day for 30 days. Now, it doesn't sound that hard, right? I mean, okay, it's just a quail, whatever. But apparently in this book of, like, hard bets to make, this is one of the hardest bets to make because quails are migratory birds, so they carry lots of different strains of viruses and bacteria, and eating a quail every single day just decimates your body's immune system. So it's insanely hard to do this. Now, the other part of it is finding a quail every day can be difficult. So like, for instance, if he were on an airplane or in an airport and his flight got delayed for the night, he could potentially lose the bet. So this guy had quail frozen and sent to every conceivable location he might go to around the country. So he bought 95 quails and shipped them all around the country, and every day would cook up a quail and send a picture or like a video over Facebook of him eating the quail and whatever. That's crazy. Eating vitamins and working out, like making sure his body didn't die. He ended up winning, the bet or whatever. I remember the night that he finished was either New Year's Eve or right around then, because he came home or like came to the party with like 35 quail that we threw on the barbecue and cooked up because he had all these extra like, uneaten quail.
And what was the damage to his body, or like was he affected by it at all, or no?
I mean, he said that he, didn't feel great the entire time. Like he wasn't going to go out and run a marathon, but he said it was never like to the point where he had any sort of major problems. Like he said that, yeah, it sucked. And some days like he'd feel like he's coming down with a cold or something that he wouldn't usually get. But overall, compared to this bet, which I think was initially made in the early 1900s or late 1800s, when vitamins and sort of, deficiencies were relatively more common, that was generally what was making the bet so hard. And so it's actually not as hard as it used to be. In fact, we looked it up on Snopes, and it's been, due to this bet, it has actually been sort of like debunked or whatever as a myth of it being the hardest bet you can make.
Oh, it's super interesting. Due to like Lee and Antonio and this guy Phil.
Yeah. So it's actually, they're quoted. I wish I had a link to it, but I'm sure there's a way I can send it. I need to figure this out for the future. But yeah, it's really interesting. And so they basically like cite this as their evidence that it's actually not as bad as it used to be.
That's super cool. Huh, that's really, really neat. Yeah, I'd never thought that. I remember, yeah, a couple of the guys that we used to play with we would bet on like all sorts of stupid things, but they were very, I think that's like one of the delineating factors between a professional gambler and one who's just doing it for like shits and giggles, is like the professional gambler, like it's the money's one aspect of it, but like the challenge of it is the other thing, right? Which is like, even in poker, like the thing that you have to be committed to is A, being good, skilled at the game, B, being able to ride the fluctuations or whatever, and then C, it's a grind, right? Like you just have to be able to physically and mentally sustain the beating of sitting there for 12, 14-hour sessions, right? Like it's and so like this seems like a variant of that, right? Which is like 25K, yeah, it's a decent amount of money, no question, but at the same time, like eating a quail every single day, like having to like live this bet up for a month. No thanks. Whereas I'm like, okay, next, is it going to be like Super Bowl ad? Is it going to be a beer or car commercial at the first commercial? You know what I mean? Like, and that's it. It's over. It's like you win your dollar.
And that's the funny thing is like I like to bet. I like to gamble for like relatively meaningless things, but occasionally I'll make a massive bet that arguably is relatively stupid, but they can drive you to do good things. Like one time I bet, Nitai, right?
Yeah.
I bet him $1,000 that I couldn't run a marathon in a 10-minute mile. And this was, 6 months away was the marathon. I'm not a runner. I'd never run really before. And it was one of these things where I'm like, I kind of want to do this. And the only way I can is to make a big bet, basically. And so it can drive you to do cool things. I ran the marathon, but lost the bet.
Wait, so it's run a marathon including a 10-minute mile?
So like average a 10-minute mile. So finish in 4 hours and 22 minutes. I finished in 4:59, so I was well off from the time. But the fact that I did it, I mean, I felt pretty good about that. You know what I mean? Like, actually got out there, made the bet, did it. I felt great about myself.
Did he collect?
We set it for $750. I felt like that was, pretty fair.
So he collected?
He collected with the trip to Vegas. So he agreed that if I took him to Vegas and paid for everything, and like it's not like I would skimp on anything, that we would call that even. So it ended up being a little bit less than 7,000.
Yeah, that's nice. I like that better because like having to like cut a check to one of your buddies over a bet is just kind of brutal. So like we stopped betting money and started betting like kind of menial things that you have to do, or the ultimate, if you're like really serious about it, is a slap bet. We still do the slap bets.
Like from How I Met Your Mother?
Oh yeah, and we definitely collect on those.
Yeah.
Just reach
that's
out,
awesome.
Whack, and that's the end of it.
Now, do you save it up and like wait till they're least expecting it?
Oh yeah, the best is like if you're traveling with one of your buddies and he falls asleep in a plane. Just a quick one. The reaction is priceless because they're shocked, and then they're like, "Oh!" and then they're like, "Where the fuck am I?" and then they're instantly angry, and then they realize they can't really do anything about it because you're in an airplane and you can't create a scene. So like the range of emotions that you go through in an incredible short period of time. At one point, there was a suggestion that you should, if you have multiple slap bets and you redeem one of them on a plane, that it actually should count for more than just one slap bet because it's so much more interesting at that point. But you have to get them while they're sleeping. Awesome. Yeah, one of my friends is like had a really bad like childhood traumatic experience. So when he's on planes, he doesn't do particularly well. So he has to take like half a Vicodin or sorry, not Vicodin, Oxycontin or something like that. Just like chill out, just like kind of veg out or whatever. Except he falls asleep all the time. The best ones. But he's really, really good about making slap bets. I think he has one on me still, so one or two.
Oh man, I'm just waiting for him to come across the screen and just slap you for while you're in the middle of the conversation.
That'd be awesome. So what do you got going on this weekend?
Not a whole lot. Well, actually, so I mentor like a young technologist through this program called Code 2040, and he and his wife and his kid and me and my girlfriend are all going to go to Six Flags and spend the day like riding roller coasters and everything else. So I got that going on.
You're like, this is a physical representation of what it's like to build a technology company. You see this roller coaster, you feel amazing, and then shit scared, and then amazing again.
It's yeah. I mean, there's a lot of learning opportunities there. See this line, even to get on this roller coaster, like that's what you got to deal with.
Yeah.
But no, he's a really good guy. He has another semester of school left, but he's interning at Slack right now and just really digging it. So it's actually really cool to hear about a little bit of the inside of Slack. What I didn't know, and I guess I probably could have looked this up, but they don't use email inside Slack. They only use Slack for all their communication. So, I mean, obviously they dog food, but it's to a level that is, at least in my mind, amazing. It's almost like like Asana using Asana for literally everything, you know? So I respect the heck out of them for that. You know, hearing other things, like I really like Stuart, man. Like, did you ever play the game that he created before Slack called Glitch?
Yeah, I remember we were talking about it when we first met or whatever. If you go to slack.com and like /404, like if you just find an error, yeah, and it's like it's the Glitch, like tribute to Glitch or whatever.
And you know Stuart reasonably well.
He lives just down the street from me. Like you see him around Vancouver and stuff like that. Yeah,
that's pretty cool. That's pretty cool.
Yeah, it's a good company. A couple of my friends work there. More than that, actually. They're growing like gangbusters. That's for sure.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, they're massive.
The platform is pretty compelling. Like I had underestimated how much kind of innovation. Like I think there's a lot of promise. I've yet to see it kind of delivered, but like you can definitely. I had underestimated the room for innovation there, and so like some of the ideas that people are kind of crafting up, I'm just like, oh, that's super smart. These people are far smarter than I am. But it's been pretty interesting for sure. I like the. I mean, I definitely like. I don't know that I can remember the last time I sent anyone on the team an email. Honestly, like we don't use email basically. We just use Slack. It's convenient. The iOS app sucks though. Like the one that I've most recently used, I'm like, it's just horrible. It's really not good.
I haven't run into too many problems with it. But it's mostly for like quick notifications if somebody pings me while I'm not in the office or something.
So the thing I don't like about it is like I felt like it did a better job of synchronizing. So if I read messages in one client, that it would like update it on all of them. And the iOS app for some reason like shit the bed in that for whatever reason. So like I'll get a message, it'll be like a DM or what have you, or mentioned in a group or something like that. And then I look at it on my desktop, and when I go to my mobile web, it still says that I have like one message, 100 message or whatever.
I've run into the exact same problem. I now know exactly what you're talking about. Oh yeah, all right. Well, if you got a phone call coming in.
No. I was just gonna say, like I saw you had one of these as well, and like that's the other thing that like Slack just is like completely useless on my watch. I'm like I don't like.
Well, here's the question: what could you do on your watch with Slack? I mean, the inputs of emojis make a lot of sense, but what do you do?
I don't know. I mean, like, I would almost argue that you probably don't do anything instead of providing, like, because that's like kind of their ethos, right? It's like do a few things like exceptionally great, whereas this felt like something like we have to figure out a way to make this form factor work for our product. Like it looked like we've got a hammer and looking for a nail. I'm like, oh, there's one. Just like smash it onto that thing. I just like I find it frustrating.
I mean, in Slack's defense, though, right? Like nobody has done anything great for the watch yet. I've seen two. Maybe correct me if you have any other ideas. But the two things I use the watch for, and I honestly don't use it for much else, is directions are fantastic, especially if I'm walking somewhere and I don't want to have to think about when I'm supposed to make a turn or whatever. And then also if my phone isn't near me and somebody gives me a call, I can still pick it up and talk through my watch, which it sounds all futuristic and crappy. I actually really enjoy that. You know, I think that's actually kind of a cool feature.
Yeah, I definitely haven't found the killer app. That's for sure. Like I think it's nice because like, you know, they have like crazy cell phone laws here. So it's nice to be able to like look at the directions as you're driving, like to just do that and like kind of move things around. So you're kind of cheating, I guess, some of the cell phone laws. But other than that, yeah, it's the concern that I guess I have is the detriment of, like we live in like a very interrupt driven world as it is. And so like one of the things I've done a long time ago is actually turn off text message notifications because I find it like just super. I don't like feeling I'm at the end of someone else's like leash where they're like ding now. Like if someone like notifies me or wants to get in contact with me, you don't like walk into the conversation and be like, hey Dennis, I'm having a conversation right here, but somehow that becomes permissible with the phone. And so this is kind of like, it's even a more subtle kind of sly way of doing that, but I actually find it more disturbing, right? Because like, I think for the most part, people have like established an etiquette where if you and I are chatting, I don't do this. I'm like, oh yeah, that's really interesting. But now you start to see people doing this and you're like, I know what you're doing at that point, right? So I find it's like, what's that?
You and I know, but what I've realized is that I used to think that this was less obtrusive, and I realized that I have to do it really hard to make my watch actually turn on. So I look like I'm trying to end the conversation. Like, that's an interesting point. And then they try and leave, being like, oh, you're out of time, because it's such a societal norm to like look at your wrist. And
Exactly.
So I don't know. I mean, like, I agree with you about killer apps missing. And I've been racking my brain. The only thing I can come up with is using it as like a Guitar Hero type thing where I have my phone in this hand and I'm like strumming the guitar with that hand or something like that. I don't know. But then that looks like some sort of weird sex act. So then I'm like, yeah.
Like, I feel like, honestly, as kind of an Apple enthusiast, I guess, like I'm like deeply disappointed in like the execution of the thing. Like the touch targets seem like super broken to me. Some very basic scenarios, like I actually agree with you. I think the maps feature is actually quite helpful. But like I had a calendar invite, it pops up, there's directions in the calendar invite. I want to be able to, like, the oldest thing in the world, right? Touch the directions, have it go to the like open maps. Doesn't work. Like,
really,
it doesn't recognize addresses. If you create a calendar invite and you put an address in there and you touch it, it does nothing. And I'm like, that's the attention to detail that like the Apple of old, or the one that I know and love, would definitely pay attention to. This is like, it's slow, it's like intermittently works. Text messages arrive like at like inconsistent ways relative to how I get them on my computer or my phone. Like, I think it's just poorly executed. We'll see with like WatchKit 2.0. I mean, a lot of it has to do that it's like doing that reflection stuff or whatever, but like, I don't know, not a huge fan. I wouldn't, if I didn't need it for my job, I definitely wouldn't have it. Like, there's no question.
Are you using it for your job?
Yeah, I mean, like, people build watch apps, and so we need to be able to build watch apps, literally. And so it was one of those kind of necessities. I've had it now for like just over a week. And I'm going to stop wearing it. It did remind me, though, I like wearing watches. Like, I find it, like, honestly, the thing I enjoy the most about it is that I know what time it is. Like, I don't take my phone to take up the time, and I'm like, I don't need this for that. I have another watch that I can use for that.
That's a nice $500 timepiece, man. That's what it comes down to.
Yeah, and I'm like, would you spend $500 for a Timex? No. Like,
no, it's literally the biggest. I tell people this all the time. It's a huge waste of money. I've been wearing it now for 3 months, and I've yet to find like a good reason to keep it. But it's like that horizon problem. Like, maybe one more week, and I don't think I'm ever going to get to a point where I actually really like it. So it's probably.
Here's a very very specific scenario or whatever. But I'm like, in the same way, I have like this little background that I'm like, okay, how could I use this that would be very helpful? I had to go pick up a friend from the airport a couple of days ago, and I was at home. Her flight didn't get until like 9 o'clock. It was 8:45. I'm like, perfect. Okay, I got to run. So, because I just looked at it like I'm sitting on my couch. I'm like, okay, I can leave right now. So I get in the car, I start driving away. I just want, and we're going to build this app. It's just going to be called Watch Flight, right? Which is like, and all it does is like you put the flight number, you choose the day, and it will just notify you if the flight changes here and there. Because like that's actually something that I like knowing that change throughout the day. Because like if it comes in half an hour early, I'll adjust. Or if I'm on the way there and I can't take out my cell phone or whatever it is, like if I can have an extra 10, 15 minutes in this case. I can, which is what I did. I went and got groceries for the next morning instead of having to do it afterwards, right? Stuff like that. So yeah, we'll create Watch Flight, and I'm sure it'll be featured in the App Store. It's like for the whatever it is, dozen times that you pick people up from the airport, here's this stupid app for you.
Yeah, plug it into like some sort of directions app so that it can even tell you when you should leave or anything else if you want to take it a step further.
Yeah. Yeah, I think their whole ethos behind this thing is like very straightforward, simple thing. Like it does one thing.
Got it.
I think that's what so far. That's kind of been my impression. I don't know. We'll see. Interesting year for them, that's for sure.
Yeah. Well, cool, man. Thanks for jumping on this chat. I don't want to take up any more of your time, but let's definitely sync up. I want to hear more about how Buddy Build's going, maybe in the future, a little bit more offline, and kind of dive into that.
Yeah, sounds good. Shoot me the video when it's done. I'd love to see it. Actually, I probably won't watch it, but I'd love to see how it kind of looks. I'd love to see like more. I'd love to learn more about your product as long as I'm not part of it in a way that I can see myself in video.
Totally. Here, let me see what